Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that, let's put it online and see what happens stage.
And the site is live.
That we opened a store and need a fast checkout stage.
Thanks. You're all set.
That count it up and ship it around the globe stage.
This one's going to Thailand.
And that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen.
Today, I'll have my conversation with Bethany Vinton about Disney World food. That's coming up on this episode 375 of WW Prep to Go. Hello and welcome to WW Prep to Go, Retalk strategy and ideas for people planning their Disney World trips. I am your host, Shannon Albert from WDWPrepSchool.com. Thank you for being here for episode 375. Today is another interview that I did with somebody that is in a niche that I thought you might find interesting. Today it is Bethany Vinton, who is primarily a creator that focuses on food, and she also happens to be a very nice person. So I'm going to have my chat with her in just a moment. As always, a reminder to follow on social media. If you could just search WDW Prep School on any platform, your favorite ones. We post information there all the time, including doing Q&As, the latest news, etc., etc. I want to make this conversation a two-way street as much as possible. Also, just a reminder that the website version of these podcasts is a full article that can be especially important with the trip reports because you can read them in article format. You can see pictures of the people that are talking, and that is when you click podcast at the top of the site, like I always say in the outro. That is where you find that information. Today's episode will also be on the website, and it will have a conversation with Bethany recapped in written form, which can be a handy reference later if you would like to go back and not listen to the whole episode all over again. I think that is all the housekeeping for now. Without any further ado, here is my chat with Bethany. Welcome, Bethany.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to talk to you. I've been following you for a while. We interact online, but have never had you on the podcast.
No, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am happy to talk to you. I want to know more about your background, how you ended up here. But for those who don't know who you are, can you do a little introduction?
Yeah, my name is Bethany Vinton. I consider myself like a Disney content creator in the food and beverage realm mainly. I talk about a lot of food and drink. I review pretty much everything. Currently, I'm on a mission to dine at every restaurant in Disney World and do reviews of those. My thing is I love food, and that's the content you can find from me online. And like you, I do want to help people better plan their vacation because there's so many food options in Disney. And I'd rather save them a little bit of money if I can by trying all the good and the bad. There's a lot of bad too that go in there, but essentially my entire platform is just helping people plan their food and beverage part of the trip. And I get to eat and drink my way around Disney, and I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I love following your reviews. I sometimes disagree, but that's okay.
Everybody has different tastes. I think if we all like the same thing, the world would be so boring.
But I think it's helpful to have different viewpoints, and then everybody can make the decision that is right for them. Can I share with the people how I first came across you?
Sure.
On TikTok?
I think I know what it's going to be.
Yeah. So when I first joined TikTok, I created a video, and it wasn't the right vibe. And you messaged me, and I didn't know who you were, but you messaged me, and you were like, no, that's not how that works. And at first I was like, who is this person? Why is she telling me? And then I was like, oh, no, she is coming from a good place.
Yeah. I get what you're trying to say, but it's totally not the vibe of what's here, and everybody's going to take it wrong. And I don't want people to attack you because I really like your stuff and your content, and I feel the internet's going to read it wrong. I understand where you're coming from and it makes sense, but I'll tell you, especially back in the early days of TikTok, like the comment section was brutal, brutal with people. They would chew you up and spit you out so fast. And I was like, no, I like her. And I know that's not her intention, but it's totally coming across this way, which it just shows it's so easy to misconstrue things on the internet that is not your intention, but it happens.
100%. But you were right. I took it down and I've been on TikTok for years. So I understand the right tone there. But it was actually like, oh, she's actually being nice. And it actually made me trust. It made me trust you because I knew you were trying to be helpful. So anyway, that's how I first came across you. But you at that point had been on TikTok for a while and have built up quite a following, mostly talking about food. But I want to get into some like food conversations, but I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how this is just a side thing that you do, even though you spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, it's definitely a side thing. Honestly, my entire Disney account started because I thought people in my normal Instagram feed were getting really sick of seeing Disney content. My normal everyday people, I think they were like, we get it. You like Disney. We understand. So I created a page for that. And then that just became a side hobby where I was posting things. TikTok really took off during the pandemic. But no, this isn't like my full-time gig. I work in marketing. I have a few clients that I work with, but this is a creative outlet that I enjoy having. And it's brought so many wonderful opportunities and great people in my life that I'm so happy I did it. But it is not the main thing, but it is the thing that keeps me up late at night and working on the weekends, which everybody's, you never stop working. And I'm like, that is correct.
Yeah, you put out so much content and go on so many trips that it is surprising that it's not your full-time job.
Yeah, I like having the balance of being able to keep like a normal client list and work for, because I do marketing consulting. I love having that regular list of people where that kind of keeps my life very balanced in things that I do. And it's not like all consuming all the time. So of Disney content and things that I do. So that's nice, but it's a good balance, I would say, but I think people would tell you I have a bad work-life balance at points. And I'll admit to that.
But I will say there are perks to not having children at home. And you and I are both in that category. It's we have extra time for work or whatever it is we want to do. So there's pros and cons to that kind of balance. But you don't even live anywhere close to Florida.
No, I live essentially almost as far as you could in like the continental US. I live out in the Pacific Northwest, right outside of Portland, Oregon. So it is a hike and a half every time I fly to Florida. And sometimes it'll be quick trips like this year for Festival of the Arts. I was only on the ground in Florida for 36 hours and I was back on a plane. Like my travel time was almost equivalent to my time in Florida. So I'm very used to flying. I'm very loyal to my Alaska Airlines. They are the only nonstop from Portland to Florida, but I do it often and the red eye is my best friend.
It's such a long way. I feel lucky to just have a direct flight and it's only 2 hours. Super simple.
I know, it's funny. I was talking because my next trip's to Disneyland and I was like, I can't, a 2-hour flight. I don't even know what to do with that. So much shorter. It'll be nice.
So much shorter. How often? So do you balance both? Are you going to do the same kind of food content there that you do at Disney World?
Yeah, I think one of the things I don't want to come across as an expert when I'm not in certain topics. And that's why I really stuck with food. And I've been to Disneyland a lot, once or twice a year. So I have a good handle. I have a better handle on Disney World, which is why there's just a lot more food at Disney World. But there'll be a lot more Disneyland content. I still have 2 trips coming up to Disneyland this year. Doing Halloween for the first time. I'm very excited. I've never done Oogie Boogie. And then I always like to go during the Christmas holiday because it's like the most magical time of year. Disneyland's so immersive when it comes to holiday decorations. So
favorite place to be anywhere in the month of December. And I will also be there during Halloween and Christmas. I know we overlap for Halloween. We'll have to compare dates for Christmas and see. Will. But yeah, so that's really fun. I feel similarly. I love going to Disneyland, but I'm never going to be an expert on it. Even though, like you, I usually go twice a year. It's not that hard though.
No, and I feel like people don't put, and this might be an assumption of me to make, but I feel like people don't put as much effort into planning their trip to Disneyland as they do Disney World because there are just so many more options that it's just like easier to go with the flow when you're there. Like last time I was there, we got to walk up at Lamplight Lounge for brunch. Like we just so went with the flow of things, and Disney World is very much polar opposite.
Completely. And one of my passions in life is trying to convince Disney World people to go to Disneyland because I think there's a tendency to say, hey, I don't want to go. It's smaller. Why would I bother? But also, if you do decide to go, don't put the same type A energy into it because it's really unnecessary.
Correct. You can do essentially everything in one park in one day. It's easy to get it done.
That's what's so great about it. It's a
Mhm.
different feel and it's really fun. But anyway, so that'll be fun and we will overlap for sure in October.
Mhm.
So that will be good for both of us coming up. We'll both have 2-hour flights for that one.
Exactly. Perfect.
But okay, so you've talked about food. So food was always your main focus. It wasn't necessarily like touring and strategy.
No, food has always been my main focus. Honestly, my Instagram page at first, because I only started it in December of 2019. I am very new on the scene when it comes to people like you. You've been creating content and I've followed you guys for such a long time. So it's nice to be on the same playing field as people at this point, because they're people that I've looked up to and followed in order to get Disney advice. But when I started, I really didn't have a direction. And then when the pandemic hit, I was missing Disney. So I started recreating recipes at home and Disney food recipes. And that's how it started. And that's what I was posting online. But when the parks began to reopen and I was going back to Disney, I realized I would get that food when I'm in Disney. And I necessarily didn't want to make it at home too. Like I enjoyed the having it there and that rarity of having it there and that joy that it brought me. So that's when my content shifted to in the parks food. Because at first it was like all recipes. That's all I was doing during the pandemic was cooking 24/7. Like I think many people found hobbies like that at the time. But yeah, then once the parks reopened, it shifted to eating in the parks because it was just the natural progression of things.
You're like food at home, now food in the parks.
Correct.
Next step. Can I tell you, this is one reason I love following you, is that I have found that it seems like there's a trend with food content to cater to likes and the algorithm and not necessarily give reviews that I think are true. So it's, oh, this is going to make a good picture or a TikTok or whatever, but it's no, but you're lying about what actually that tastes like.
Correct. I think it's true. I think that kind of was like, my face does not lie. I cannot, there's no way I could tell you something was good and show you my face and you'd be like, you're lying. Even people all the time will call out me on for things. But I feel like there is a way of being really positive. And I think people just want real reviews because Disney is expensive. People spend a lot of money. So if you watch this review online that's so glowing and you go there and you just have such a polar opposite experience, while that is possible and Disney does lack consistency in a lot of things, I find a lot of times it's trends where things will be bad, but you'll watch these online reviews of how great they are. And then you go and you're like, am I the problem? What is the issue? So I think like the honesty level was just there from the beginning, but being honest without being overly negative, because again, it is like a privilege to go to Disney all the time. And I don't take that for granted for a second. So how do I also make it funny? My thing is, I'm like, if I can discourage people from spending their hard-earned money on like a terrible dome cake while making them laugh, I've done my mission.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same vibe that we tried for as well. Like, we're going to be honest, but we also want you to have fun. And we're not trying to be overly negative. I would say the same people that go for the clicks, for glowing reviews also tend to go towards the overly negative, right? Because that extreme emotions of any kind, they can really get it, but it's not necessarily true.
No. And you know what? I've liked doing this Dining Everywhere series because there are places that I figured I would absolutely hate. And I've loved them. I did Artist Point. I loved Artist Point. I was like, this is so much fun. So I think it's like a balance.
Yeah. I do think that's a transition from doing the parks for personal purposes versus professional. Because when it's your job, you do everything. Like I probably wouldn't do very many character meals at this stage of life.
Me either.
My daughter's 28. What am I doing? So but it's your job. So you have to go try things. And it's nice that you've been surprised.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised because there's a lot of character dining I did in the past that I was like, this is not great. And I think Disney's improved a lot. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like you said, going to the parks for like creativity wise too. Like when you're doing work, it is so different. I try literally everything and I would normally never do that. I'm a creature of habit. I would order spring rolls every time I go into Magic Kingdom and be perfectly content. But I know I can't do that. I have to try things. But it's also opened me up to a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have tried that I'm happy that I did now.
Yeah. So if you were going for personal reasons, you would have more options to choose from because you've tried so many things.
Yeah. You name it. I've probably tried it in a park at this point in time. It's hard to find things that you really haven't tried and discover new things. So it's nice when Disney comes out with some new stuff.
I do think that's one of the things that keeps this job interesting is that things do change. And so it's not like it's the same thing over and over again. We have like lists of, oh, here's our to-do list for our next trip, the things to try that have just come out or whatever.
Yeah.
And also,
it is always changing.
And we both work in digital marketing, stuff always changes too. So you have
Correct.
both things to keep your brain active and young.
Correct, which is nice because it allows that creativity to flow too and doesn't keep you like boxed in or feeling like the same thing. It's like the mundane thing. You're doing the same thing every day. It's always changing.
So I wanted to ask you a few kind of rapid fire questions that are related to food. You mentioned that you had a good experience at Artist Point. What is your favorite character meal that you've tried?
I would say probably Topolino's breakfast or Tusker House. I like Tusker House a lot. I prefer it for like lunch or dinner, but I did breakfast on this last trip and enjoyed it too. I'm trying to think of anything else that stand out. Those are probably my top favorite. I did really enjoy Artist Point, though. I liked it a lot more than I thought. I don't think it's necessarily the meal for everyone because the menu is a little more out there than a lot of people want to bring their kids to. But I love Topolino's breakfast. That to me is just like a classic character dining with really good food. And Tusker House gives me all the vibes of Boma, but it's in a park with characters. So those are my probably top two.
What's interesting about the Storybook Dining Artist Point that you just mentioned is that we have always had good experiences there. And 3 members of our team just went a few weeks ago and had a terrible experience. And it is one that is so inconsistent.
Yeah. See, and that's like the biggest issue with Disney is there are so many experiences that people have that they're completely inconsistent. I could have a great experience and then I could go back a week later and it's just not even the same thing. And that's a bummer because obviously you're paying a lot of money to go to dinner. Sorry, that's $60 some odd per person. It's not cheap. That's always disappointing to hear. And I know everyone's going to have different experiences, but we try our best, but that's not on us at that point.
But I do think that's good. Like we were just saying earlier that we might have different reviews, but it's helpful for everybody to hear different points of view. It's also helpful to hear different experiences because I totally believe that Bethany had a good experience. And I totally believe that the 3 people on my team had a not so good one, but that was the luck of the draw. Some places are more inconsistent than others.
Yeah, it's true. I had a not great experience at Olivia's this time, and Olivia's has always consistently been one of my favorites. And I was like, oh, no, I loved it so much.
I like Olivia so much as well. What is your favorite table service restaurant overall?
Right now, I would say I'm competing between Narcoossee's and Citricos. And people are like, what one do I pick? And I always tell them, if you love seafood, go to Narcoossee's. If seafood's not your ultimate jam, go to Citricos. I think that's like a good divider, but both of those are absolutely outstanding. The refurbishments that they did to the restaurants, they're both beautiful. The food for me has always been like top notch. The service is always great. I have had such great experiences multiple times at both of those restaurants, and I find myself going back to them on almost every trip.
I have long been a huge fan of California Grill. I feel like they have consistent service, consistent food. I love the views, really great. But Citricos, for me, it gives it a run for the money.
Yeah. I used to be a huge fan of California Grill, and I just cannot get behind it as much with this prefix menu. To me, it's just not the same.
I don't disagree with you. I really don't like the menu being this way. But I have still had good experiences with the service and the food.
Oh, yeah. Great service all the times that I've been there, too.
And most of the staff there has been there for 20 years or something, which speaks a lot to the place itself. But you're right. I hope that they go back to the...
I was so hoping it was coming back after the 50th. And I had gone to the bar for a drink and the guy was like, no, we're keeping it. And I was like, why?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't love that. I did really enjoy going there and getting like an order of sushi, a dessert, glass of wine. That was just enough. But the fixed price menu means you're in for a lot of food.
Yeah, you're in for a lot of food and a high price.
And a big bill, which is why they do it.
Yep.
What about Food and Wine Festival this year? Any particular things that stand out for you?
I will say, I think the 2 booths, Coastal Eats and the, Flavors of Fire. I think both of those booths, were consistently really good for me. I felt like I heard a lot of bad things about the crab cake. I had it the other day and I thought it was absolutely delicious. I was like, this crab cake is phenomenal. Those 2 for me were pretty big standouts. I will say there's nothing that crazily blew my mind this year. I think I was probably so tainted by that pickle milkshake that I couldn't even focus on anything. But those to me are always wins. Mexico's usually always a pretty solid option, a little expensive, but I think the food was really good this year. Trying to think of anything else that really stood out to me. But yeah, overall, I love Ireland too. Give me that chocolate lava cake situation every time. I think that one is really good. But besides that, Brewing minus the pickle milkshake was pretty good. They have those cardamom wings that I think are really delicious. And the Impossible tenders are also phenomenal.
Yeah, I think the lines are long because of that yucky pickle milkshake, but there's actually good things to get there.
Correct. The first day I ordered the pickle milkshake and I was like, this place is horrible. And now I've been back and actually ate the wings instead of getting the coveted internet gem. And I don't regret it for a second because the food there is pretty good.
Yeah. What is your favorite place to have a drink at Walt Disney World?
Ooh, it's a tie, and I refuse to pick a winner, and it's going to be between La Cava del Tequila and Nomad Lounge. Those are my two spots. I always say Rope Drop Cocktail Club. I am not a rope dropper in the morning. This trip we were because we had a toddler, but in general, I will never rope drop the parks in the morning. That's not my hour of the day. I like to stroll in and head right to a lounge and get myself a cocktail. And the team at La Cava has always been so sweet, and they're wonderful, and their drinks are fabulous, and you can't go wrong with Nomad Lounge. The food there is great. The atmosphere is phenomenal. The service is great, and the cocktails are so good.
When we have a big trip that is very busy, like Food and Wine Festival, Flower and Garden Festival, something, we try to get it all done as fast as possible so that we have an empty day and we go to Nomad Lounge and that's what we do.
It's the way to do it. We ended up for Flower Garden this year getting done as the sun was setting, which is great timing. And we walked right to La Cava and we all sat down and we were all like dead, absolutely dead after doing that, but worth it.
It's so good. It's frustrating that it's so small and there's often a wait, but oh man.
Yeah. But when you like, I love sitting in there. They have their best chips and queso in there.
I was just going to say, don't sleep on the chips and queso.
They're so good.
So good.
I feel like they just know to bring them out to me now. And they're like, do you want, I was like, yes, chips and queso. Yes, yes.
I will also say I have always been a non-margarita person, a non-tequila person. I really was like, I'm not into that. And they changed my mind.
Ah, see, I love that. And they have good non-tequila items. Their seasonal Negroni right now is so good. One of the best drinks I've had. But La Cava will do that to you. You go into that little cave, you'll come out a tequila lover every time.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when I leave that it's still daylight. Like,
exactly.
How did that happen? I thought it was nighttime.
Exactly.
But it does. It feels like a little cozy cave inside of there. All right. So we talked a lot about food so far, but food isn't necessarily all you do. You've worked with different companies in the niche, and you're currently with Standby Skipper. Can you talk a little bit about how you've used your marketing skills with some other businesses?
Yeah, I've known Standby Skipper for well over a year. If you guys don't know, if you listen to this podcast, you obviously know what Standby Skipper is. But I had gotten in touch with them before they went live. They weren't even in beta at the time. And I was like, I cannot wait to use this, because I was a hater of Genie Plus until that rolled around. And it's been nice. They're such a great group of people over there. And you've gotten to know them too, that it's been nice to help these like smaller family run businesses in the Disney sphere really succeed in things that they do, and they're lovely. And I remember I made my YouTube video and they're like, oh my God, do we pay you for this? And I was like, no, you don't pay me. I created this wonderful video because I genuinely love this app. And so they're a great one. And I've loved working with them. They're like so much fun every time. They're the only people I'll ever skip for in Disney World, and they know that. I will skip through every line, like physically skip, just to make them happy. Because I know it brings them joy.
For people that don't know, the Standby Skipper has people do videos of them skipping and they share them on social media. But when Bethany goes, she skips through every queue.
Yeah, it's like they like share a bunch of children, and then it's like me. It's fine.
You know what? I would skip. One of my favorite trends on TikTok, it was this year, right? Where it was like, can men skip? And so now I feel like it's become more normal to skip in social media videos.
Correct. I'm just on the social trends.
At least you can skip, right? Some people forgot how.
I really had to pull that one out of the back corner of my mind. It had been a while.
It did prompt me to ask people in my life, like, can you skip? Do you know how to skip? But it's very funny.
Yeah.
And the name lends itself to it.
Correct. But I like anything that helps assist people with their vacation, that makes things easier. And if I genuinely love something, I will talk about it every single time, because there's so many details that go into a Disney trip. And of course, I have a very different Disney experience than a lot of people, because I'm not really going on vacation anymore. I go and do work, and I'm there often, that if I miss something, it's not a big deal. But anytime I find something that I think makes my trip easier, I'm always down to share it.
Yeah. And I think the authenticity is what is so appealing to anyone who follows you. And it doesn't surprise me that Standby Skipper said, "Do I have to pay you?" Because they're probably not used to people just sharing things, because in this niche and in every online niche, that most people will share things because they're being paid to do it.
Yeah.
So it's nice when you don't.
Exactly. And I was like, no, people need a video of how to use this, because I have to answer like 7 million questions in my DMs when I post about it. So I'd rather just have a resource that I can send people to instead of explaining it every time. But yeah, that's a good one. I really like things that help make Disney trips easier, because Disney is complicated in very many forms.
And we tend to focus so much on strategy and getting as many lightning lanes as possible that I just love that it's a tool that can make that part easier, especially because we have a lot of families with kids and there's just too many things to focus on.
For sure. This was our first time doing Disney with a toddler, and it was a lot. I bless every parent that goes with, especially multiple kids. One, I still think you're an amazing rock star, because I could not keep up the pace with that child. But people that go with multiple children, bless you. We are living two vastly different Disney experiences, let me tell you.
Yeah, when we test like touring and strategy and stuff, we try to mimic what it is like to have little kids by slowing down and like taking lots of pictures, answering DMs on Instagram. Like, we purposely slower, because otherwise we have nothing to stop us. We don't have little kids that need to go to the bathroom, or that need us to get a snack out, or that are not willing to walk, or whatever the deal is. So we have to really try to mimic it, because it's just not our experience either anymore.
Yep, it's so true though, but it's so different. I give so much credit to people, and it just complicates, again, another layer of complication on an already complicated Disney vacation.
100%. It's like its own thing, its own layer. That's why we have a complete guide to going to Disney World with a toddler that is probably 12,000 words, because it's just its own separate topic. But this niche seems to have a lot of those little subtopics that you can dive into. Okay, so we talked about Standby Skipper, who you currently work with. Anything else in your plans? Anything else you're working on?
Nothing really crazy at this moment in time. Maybe some more things with touring plans coming up. Who knows? There's always great companies that I've worked with, and I'm always down, but I just go with the flow of things and see who knows what's in my future at any point in time.
You're just open to the possibilities.
Correct.
So before we wrap it up, can you share with people where to find you, including your podcast?
Yeah, you can find me on, I believe, every social media platform. It's Bethany Vinton, Vinton, and I'm literally that on every social media. And then I also have a podcast that I dish on the Disney food and drink with my two co-hosts, Colin and Bella. It is called The Main Street Dish, and we're weekly, where we chat about everything. This week we talked about food at Mickey's Not So Scary, because we got to do that last week. There's always different things that are coming up on that podcast, food and wine, and we just dined at Victoria and Albert, so that'll be out there soon too.
I loved following along with that.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even post anything really.
You barely did.
Because we were relishing every second of that nice of a dinner.
Yeah, you posted that you really loved it, and I was excited for you, because that's an experience.
It was absolutely amazing. And I was like, have we become those people? Because one of my goals has been to find the best old fashioned on Disney property. And I was like, it's at Victoria and Albert's. That's where it is. I'm not going to lie, but that's an expensive old fashioned.
It is. You're going to get feedback like me, if you haven't already, which is, you do too many fancy things. I'm like, I also eat at every snack cart and quick service. You do everything when it's your job.
Yeah, you got to try it all. And we had been really working for this one with our podcast, and we finally got there, and we were on a trip together that it worked out. So we did a Victoria and Albert's, and it was worth every second of it. But yeah,
I can't wait to hear more about it, because I was glad that you enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it was so good.
All right. Thanks for joining, Bethany. It's been good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that is my chat with Bethany. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow her. We will have the links to all her stuff in the show notes of your favorite podcast app, or on the website in the written form, as I mentioned in the intro. I think that will wrap up this episode of WW Preps to Go. For more information, including the links that I just mentioned, please check your podcast app or head to the website. Click on podcast at the top and scroll down to episode 375. Until next time, I will see you on the site.